KaraokeBooks.
The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Written by Mark Twain. Audiobook. Chapter 14. Was Solomon wise? By and by, when we got up, we turned over the truck the gang had stole off of the wreck, and found boots, and blankets, and clothes, and all sorts of other things, and a lot of books, and a spyglass, and 3 boxes of Seegers. We hadn't ever been this rich before in neither of our lives. The Seegers was prime. We laid off all the afternoon in the woods talking, and me reading the books, and having a general good time. I told Jim all about what happened inside the wreck and at the ferryboat, and I said these kinds of things was adventures, but he said he didn't want no more adventures. He said that when I went in the Texas and he crawled back to get on the raft and found her gone, he nearly died, because he judged it was all up with him anyway, it could be fixed. For if he didn't get saved he would get drowned. And if he did get saved, whoever saved him would send him back home so as to get the reward, and then Miss Watson would sell him south, sure. Well, he was right. He was most always right. He had an uncommon level head for a nigger. I read considerable to Jim about kings and dukes and earls and such, and how gaudy they dressed, and how much style they put on, and called each other your majesty, and your grace, and your lordship, and so on, 'stead of Mr. And Jim's eyes bugged out, and he was interested. He says, I didn't know day was so many I hain't hearn 'bout none scazely, but ol' King Sollerman, onless you counts dem kings dat's in a pack yards. How much do a king get? Get? I says. Why, they get $1,000 a month if they want it. They can have just as much as they want. Everything belongs to them. Ain't dat gay? And what they got to do, Huck? They don't do nothing. Why, how you talk? They just set around. No, is dat so? Of course it is. They just set around, except, maybe, when there's a war, then they go to the war. But other times they just lazy around. Or go hawking. Just hawking and shish. You hear a noise? We skipped out and looked. But it warn't nothing but the flutter of a steamboat's wheel away down, coming around the point, so we come back. Yes, says I, and other times, when things is dull, they fuss with the Parliament, and if everybody don't go just so he whacks their heads off. But mostly they hang round the harem. Round, de which? Harem. What's de harem? The place where he keeps his wives. Don't you know about the harem? Solomon had one. He had about 1,000,000 wives. Why, yes, dat's so. I done forgot it. A harem's a boatin' house, I reckon. Most likely dey has rackety times in de nussery. And I reckon de wives quarrels considerable, and dat, crease de racket. Yit dey say Solomon de wisest man dat ever live. I don't take no stock in dat. Because why? Would a wise man want to live in de mids sich a blim blammin' all de time? No, deed he wouldn't. A wise man. You'd take en bewheel, a biler factory. And den he could shut down de biler factory when he want to res. Well, but he was the wisest man, anyway, because the widow she told me so, her own self. I don't keer what de widder say, he warn't no wise man nuther. He had some de dad fetchedies ways I ever see. Does you know 'bout dat chili dat he, ooze gwin to chop in two? Yes, the widow told me all about it. Well, den. Warn, dat de beaten's notion in de whirl. You jes take en look at it a minute. Da's de stump, da. Dat's one de women. Hey as you. Dat's de yother one. I Sollerman. En dish dollar bills de chili. Bofay on you claims it. What does I do? Does I shin a roon, mongs de neighbors en find out which on you de bill do belong to, en han it over to de right one. All safe and sound, de way dat anybody dat had any gumption would? No, I take en whack de bill in two, en give half on it to you, en de yother half to de yother woman. Dat's de way Sollerman was gwin to do wid de chili. Now I want to ask you, what's de use dat half a bill? Can't buy nothin' wid it. And what use as a half a chili? I wouldn't give a dern for a million But hang it, Jim, you've clean missed the point. Blame it, you've missed it 1,000 mile. Who? Me? Go, long. Don't talk to me 'bout yo, pints. I reckon I knows sense when I sees it. And dey ain' no sense in sich doin's as dat. De spute warn't 'bout a half a chili, de spute was 'bout a whole chili. And a man dat think he kin settle a spute 'bout a whole chili wid a half a chili don't know enough to come in out'n de rain. Don't talk to me 'bout Sollerman, Huck, I knows him by de back. But I tell you, you don't get the point. Blame de point. I reckon I knows what I knows. And mind you, de real pint is down furder, it's down deeper. It lays in de way Sollerman was raised. You take a man dat's got ony 1 or 2 chillin', is dat man gwin to be wasteful o' chillin'? No, he ain't, he can't 'ford it. He know how to value 'em. But you take a man dat's got 'bout 5 million chillin' runnin' round de house, and it's different. He as soon chop a chili in 2 as a cat. Dey's plenty mo. A chili 2, mo, less, warn't no consequence to Sollerman, dad fetch him. I never see such a nigger. If he got a notion in his head once, there warn't no getting it out again. He was the most down on Solomon of any nigger I ever see. So I went to talking about other kings, and let Solomon slide. I told about Louis XVI that got his head cut off in France long time ago. And about his little boy the dolphin, that would have been a king, but they took and shut him up in jail, and some say he died there. Po, little chap. But some says he got out and got away, and come to America. Dat's good. But he'll be pooty lonesome. Dey ain't no kings here, is dey, Huck? No. Den he can't get no situation. What he gwin to do? Well, I don't know. Some of them gets on the sharif, and some of them learns people how to talk French. Why, Huck, don't de French people talk de same way we does? No, Jim. You couldn't understand a word they said, not a single word. Well, now, I be ding busted. How do dat come? I don't know, but it's so. I got some of their jabber out of a book. Suppose a man was to come to you and say parlez-vous français, what would you think? I wouldn't think nuffin'. I'd take and bust him over de head. Dat is, if he warn't white. I wouldn't 'low no nigger to call me dat. Shucks, it ain't calling you anything. It's only saying, do you know how to talk French? Well, den, why couldn't he say it? Why, he is a saying it. That's a Frenchman's way of saying it. Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, and I don't want to hear no mo 'bout it. Dey ain' no sense in it. Looky here, Jim. Does a cat talk like we do? No, a cat don't. Well, does a cow? No, a cow don't, nuther. Does a cat talk like a cow, or a cow talk like a cat? No, dey don't. It's natural and right for 'em to talk different from each other, ain't it? Course. And ain't it natural and right for a cat and a cow to talk different from us? Why, mos' holy it is. Well, then, why ain't it natural and right for a Frenchman to talk different from us? You answer me that. Is a cat a man, Huck? No. Well, den, dey ain't no sense in a cat talkin' like a man. Is a cow a man? Is a cow a cat? No, she ain't either of them. Well, den, she ain't got no business to talk like either one or the other of 'em. Is a Frenchman a man? Yes. Well, den. Dad blame it. Why don't he talk like a man? You answer me dat. I see it warn't no use wasting words. You can't learn a nigger to argue. So I quit.
KaraokeBooks.